What if I told you that the doubt living inside your mind isn't yours, that it wasn't born with you, that it was installed not by truth, not by evidence, but by repetition? By years of hearing what couldn't be done, of watching others settle, of seeing powerful men shrink themselves to fit inside small cages built by fear. What if I told you that every hesitation you've carried, every quiet voice that told you to wait, to hold back, to question your own strength, was never yours to begin with? It was borrowed, programmed, repeated, but not born. Because you, my friend, were not made to question yourself. You were made to build. You were made to rise. You were made to win, not eventually, not someday, not when everything aligns perfectly, but now. And if you stay with me, not halfway, not half listening, but fully, if you breathe these words, speak them aloud, and return to them daily, something will begin to shift. Not in theory, not in imagination, in identity, because what I'm about to hand you is not a motivational talk. It is a reprogramming, a full recalibration of the system that has quietly allowed doubt to lead your steps for far too long. And when it's over, when the final word is landed, you will no longer recognize the version of yourself that once accepted smallness as fate. Because doubt, as I will show you, is a habit. And habits can be broken. But belief is a decision. Belief is the act of remembering who you were before the world taught you to shrink. And today we return to that man, the one who knew he was built for more, the one who didn't wait for proof before taking the first step, the one who moved as though victory was already written. And let me tell you something most men never hear. That man is still inside you, waiting, watching, wondering when you'll stop listening to the old voice and start moving like a builder again. So say it with me now. I was not made to doubt. I was made to win. Say it louder. I was not made to question. I was made to decide. Say it until your voice shakes the dust of hesitation from your chest. I do not wait for courage. I move anyway, because today we are not here to play with belief. We are here to make it law. And once you've made a law of the mind, the body follows, the voice follows, the results follow. So stay with me from this first word to the last, and let us begin the process of burning doubt out of your identity for good. Let me be very clear. You were not born with doubt. No man is. Doubt is not a natural instinct. It is not hardwired into your soul. It is a condition, a disease of the environment, a mental parasite that grows only when fed. And the world, my friend, is full of feeders. You were born with curiosity, with hunger, with fire. No child enters this world second-guessing himself. Look at any young boy. He does not wonder if he can walk. He tries. He does not ask for permission to explore. He moves. He falls and rises, reaches and screams, not because he's certain, but because he hasn't yet learned to fear. Doubt is not natural. It is taught. It is modeled. It is repeated. And by the time you are grown, you've been told, directly or indirectly, that your power is dangerous, that your fire must be contained, that dreaming belongs to others, not to you. But here is the truth that changes everything. If doubt was learned, belief can be built. And that building begins with remembering who you were before the world reshaped you. It begins with one small act of rebellion, rejecting the idea that you must hesitate simply because those around you did. Henry Ford was not a man born into privilege, no prestigious schooling, no wealthy bloodline, and yet he refused to absorb doubt. When the world told him his vision of an affordable automobile was madness, he responded with action. His own engineers, men with far greater formal education, told him it was impossible to build an 8-cylinder engine in a single block. And what did he say? Produce it anyway. Not once, not twice. Every time they returned with failure, Ford gave the same command. Produce it anyway. That is not genius. That is not luck. That is belief. So firm, so final, it did not flinch before impossibility. Ford had trained his mind to obey his vision, not his environment. He had unlearned doubt and replaced it with decision, and that decision became law. Or consider Thomas Edison, who failed not once, not 10 times, but over 10,000 times in pursuit of the electric light. 10,000 failures, 10,000 moments where doubt could have taken the throne. But Edison didn't entertain it because he had built something stronger. identity. He didn't say, maybe I can. He said, I am the man who will, and that identity became armor. Every time a test failed, he didn't internalize it. He moved forward because his belief wasn't rooted in evidence. It was rooted in repetition. He told himself again and again that this would work, that he would work, that something would work, and so it did. Belief is not a feeling. It is not something you stumble into. It is built the same way a bridge is built, through consistent daily acts of decision and discipline. You choose belief even when you don't feel it. You repeat belief even when the old identity screams otherwise. You walk like the man who knows even when part of you still doubts, until that part no longer has a seat at the table. Carnegie once told me, if a man does not command his own mind, someone else will. And that is exactly what doubt is, a sign that you have surrendered your authority. Not consciously, not deliberately, but in small, subtle ways over time you've let doubt set the tone. That ends now. Say this aloud. Doubt is not mine. I refuse to carry it. Say it again. I do not live by hesitation. I live by decision. Now let us speak of the most powerful moment in any man's life. The moment he makes a decision so clear, so permanent, so final, that the old self can no longer survive it. Because identity is not discovered. It is decided. You do not stumble into greatness. You declare it. You do not wait to become confident. You decide that from this moment forward, confidence will be your posture. You do not hope to one day become fearless. You decide to act even while afraid. And that very act rewrites the code of who you are. Every man lives within an identity. The problem is most men live inside one they never chose. An identity built from accidents, from repetition, from fear, from the small opinions of small minds. Because they never consciously declared who they were, they become a collage of contradictions, powerful in potential, paralyzed in practice. But the men I studied, the ones who carved their names into the history of achievement, they all did one thing first. They decided who they were, not based on circumstances, not based on feelings, based on vision. Before Ford was a titan of industry, before he revolutionized how the world moved, he made a simple decision. He would build a car for the common man. That was it, a sentence, a commitment, a line drawn in the earth. But once that decision was made, everything changed. He no longer thought like a mechanic. He became a builder of machines, of ideas, of a future only he could see. And when the world doubted him, when bankers and engineers and newspaper men mocked his ambition, Ford did not bend, because his identity was decided. And once a man makes that choice, the world loses its power to define him. Edison decided long before the world believed in him. He said, I will illuminate the world. And then he walked toward that vision every single day. When others called him a fool, when failure arrived daily, when results didn't show for years, he moved forward anyway, because in his mind, the result had already happened. He was simply catching up to it. Results follow identity, not the other way around. The men who rise are the men who decide to rise, first in silence, first in solitude, first without evidence. There comes a moment in every man's journey where the greatest leap forward comes not from a new step ahead, but from cutting off every path behind. Movement without commitment is not progress. It is dabbling. No empire was ever built by a man who kept a backup plan for mediocrity. No legacy was written by the man who kept the exit door open just in case it got hard. Carnegie, Edison, Ford, Lincoln, they all understood one sobering truth. If you leave the bridge standing, fear will always tempt you to cross back over it. Ford did not say, we'll try this automobile idea, and if it doesn't work, we'll return to making carriages. He staked everything. When he committed to the Model T, he shut down every other vehicle his company produced, against his board, against the fear of his peers. He simplified, he focused, and in doing so, he created a revolution. Why? Because there was no retreat. Ford didn't seek comfort. He sought completion. What is your retreat? The job you keep as a safety net, though it hollows your soul? The idea you never begin because the timing never feels right? The voice you silence because you fear how it might be received? These are not strategies. These are shelters for fear. And as long as they stand, you will never move at full force. You must commit entirely, and you must prove that commitment by removing every exit. Say it aloud. There is no retreat. I have made my decision. The door behind me is gone. I move with finality. I act without escape. There is a voice in every man's mind that determines the quality of his life long before the world ever touches him. The voice that speaks when no one is around. The one that whispers when the door closes, when the lights go off, when results don't come, and the crowd has gone silent. If you do not train that voice, it will train you. This is called autosuggestion, the deliberate, repeated feeding of the subconscious mind, with instructions so clear, so consistent, so emotionally charged that they become identity. The subconscious does not reason. It accepts whatever is repeated with emotion, and therein lies your greatest threat, or your greatest weapon. Ford said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." He wasn't being clever. He was revealing how he built everything he ever built. He trained his inner voice to say one thing on repeat: it will be done. And because he repeated it, his subconscious went to work making it real. Most men speak carelessly to themselves. They allow doubt, worry, and sarcasm to run unchecked, and they wonder why progress always stalls. The subconscious does not understand humor. When you joke about failing or being stuck, it hears those words as instructions. It installs them. It obeys them. And soon you obey them too. So I challenge you, create your own script. A handful of phrases spoken with intensity and repeated with conviction. Not borrowed affirmations, your words, your beliefs, written with fire. I do not explain my power. I execute it. I am not waiting for motivation. I move with discipline. Write them, speak them, repeat them every morning before the world delivers its version of reality. And every night, just before sleep, when the mind is open and the subconscious is listening. Because the voice you speak becomes the voice you hear, and the voice you hear becomes the voice you believe, and what you believe shapes everything. There comes a moment when every man must choose. Will I follow how I feel, or will I follow what I've decided? Most men, without knowing it, live under the rule of emotion. They act when it feels good. They pause when it gets heavy. They speak when confident. They hide when uncertain. And they wonder why their life never becomes what it was meant to be. But the builders, the producers, the men history remembers, they moved by a different compass. They didn't wait to feel brave. They acted before courage arrived. Lincoln didn't have unanimous support when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. His cabinet was divided. The nation was at war. And still he moved, not because he felt certain of the outcome, but because he was certain of his identity. That is what made him great. Faith is not a mystical energy. It is a mental posture, a discipline. It is built brick by brick through repetition, decision, and the refusal to waver. You do not need a reason to believe. You choose belief, and the reason follows. Every morning, declare your beliefs aloud. Not what you feel, but what you choose to carry. I act before I feel ready. I am not a slave to emotion. I command it. I walk by faith because the man I am becoming is already real. Then move immediately, because faith is not built in stillness. It is forged in motion. And finally, decide. Quickly. Move now. Indecision is the seedbed of fear. It is not failure that paralyzes a man. It is the refusal to choose. The world does not yield to the man who is clever. It yields to the man who is certain. Every time you hesitate, you signal to your subconscious, I don't trust myself. But every time you act, even imperfectly, you reinforce the identity of a man who keeps his word. And soon your body, your presence, your very posture reflects that new identity. So say it one final time. I decide quickly. I act without apology. I do not explain who I am. I demonstrate it. You were not made to doubt. You were made to win. Now walk like it, and don't look back.